This is not a lecture about lightly limiting your pretzels. This is an exploration of a silent, chronic, and pervasive poisoning. We will move from the immediate, tangible effects you feel after a heavy meal to the slow, structural sabotage happening in your arteries, your brain, your bones, and your very DNA. We will expose the hidden sources, dismantle the pervasive myths, and ultimately, reveal the empowering path to reclamation. So, settle in. What follows is a 4,000-word testament to the incredible fragility and resilience of your physiology. Your understanding of your body is about to change forever. Let us begin with a fundamental truth: salt is not inherently evil. Sodium is an essential electrolyte, a critical mineral without which we cannot live. It maintains the delicate fluid balance inside and outside our cells, a balance called homeostasis. It is crucial for nerve impulse transmission. Every thought, every heartbeat, every muscle contraction depends on a tiny, lightning-fast exchange of sodium and potassium ions. It facilitates the absorption of nutrients in our gut. We need it. But here lies the catastrophic modern paradox: we have transformed a vital necessity into a slow-acting toxin. Our ancestors scavenged for precious salt. We are drowning in an unseen ocean of it. The recommended limit for health is, at most, 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day, about 1 teaspoon of table salt. The ideal limit for cardiovascular health is closer to 1,500 milligrams. Yet the average global intake is double that, often soaring to 3,400, 4,000, even 5,000 milligrams daily. This is not a minor excess. This is a sustained biological overload. To understand the consequence, we must first witness the body's acute, emergency response. Phase 1, the immediate rebellion, a system in crisis. Imagine you sit down and consume a heavily salted meal, a large serving of fast food, a family-sized bag of chips, a processed frozen dinner. Within minutes, a cascade begins. The sodium from that meal is rapidly absorbed through your small intestine and floods into your bloodstream. The osmolality, the concentration of particles in your blood, spikes. A cluster of specialized neurons in your brain, the osmolarity receptors, detect this shift. They are alarm bells. They scream a message to your hypothalamus: the blood is too concentrated. Dilute or die. This triggers two simultaneous, primal responses. First, you feel an intense, almost urgent thirst. This is not casual sipping thirst. This is a biological command to get water into your system to lower that sodium concentration. Second, your brain's pituitary gland releases a flood of antidiuretic hormone, or ADH, directly into your bloodstream. ADH travels to your kidneys and issues a stark order: stop making urine. Conserve every single drop of water. We are in a drought. Your kidneys obey. The normal flow of urine slows to a trickle. All available water is pulled back into the bloodstream. Now, you drink. You might drink a large glass, maybe two. That water enters your stomach, is absorbed, and joins the bloodstream. But the sodium is still there. So, to dilute it, the total volume of your blood must expand. And it does. Your blood plasma volume can increase by a significant percentage within hours of a high salt load. This is the genesis of the crisis. Your circulatory system is a closed, pressurized network. Imagine forcing 10% more water into a garden hose that cannot expand. The pressure inside must rise. This is exactly what happens to your blood pressure. It rises, often sharply. You may feel this as a throbbing in your temples, a mild headache, a feeling of fullness or puffiness in your face and hands. Your heart, that magnificent four-chambered pump, now faces a greater workload. It must contract more forcefully to push this increased volume of thicker, saltier blood through miles of vasculature. The stroke volume, the amount of blood ejected with each beat, increases. Your pulse may feel stronger, even slightly faster. Meanwhile, your kidneys are in a state of high alert. Once the immediate crisis of concentration is managed by increased fluid, they must begin the laborious task of excreting the excess sodium. They switch modes from conservation to expulsion. The renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, a complex hormonal axis, is temporarily suppressed to allow sodium to be lost. You begin to produce urine again, but now it is more concentrated with sodium. This process takes hours, even a full day. This acute phase is a masterclass in biological adaptation. Your body manages the insult. You feel better. And this is where the fatal misconception takes root: my body handled it. It's fine. But this emergency response, the vasoconstriction, the high-pressure surge, the hormonal tumult, is deeply stressful to the system. It is a storm. And while the body is designed to weather occasional storms, what happens when the storm becomes the permanent climate? This brings us to the heart of the catastrophe. Phase 2, the chronic sabotage, a slow-motion structural collapse. When high sodium intake is not an occasional event but a daily reality, when your bloodstream is a perpetually salty sea, the acute emergency response morphs into a permanent, pathological state. The temporary adaptations become fixed features. This is where salt transitions from a manageable stressor to an architect of chronic disease. We must examine this system by system. The cardiovascular system, the sandblasted artery, and the failing heart. Chronically high sodium means chronically high blood volume and, consequently, chronically high blood pressure, hypertension. Think of your arteries not as inert pipes, but as living, dynamic tissues with a delicate, inner lining called the endothelium. This lining is a miracle. It regulates blood flow, prevents clotting, and fights inflammation. Under normal pressure, it functions with elegant precision. Now, imagine subjecting that delicate endothelial lining to a constant, high-pressure jet of abrasive fluid, day after day, year after year. It is a sandblaster. The endothelium becomes damaged. Microtears appear. In response to this injury, your body launches an inflammatory repair process. Low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, often called bad cholesterol, seeps into the damaged vessel wall. Immune cells called macrophages rush in to clean it up, but they become engorged with oxidized cholesterol, transforming into foam cells. This is the genesis of atherosclerotic plaque, a fatty, inflamed streak in your artery wall. The body then tries to wall off this plaque with a fibrous cap. But the process is fueled by ongoing inflammation and pressure. The artery wall thickens and stiffens, arteriosclerosis. The passageway for blood narrows, atherosclerosis. The once smooth, flexible highway becomes a calcified, potholed, congested alley. Your heart is now tasked with the Herculean labor of forcing blood through these hardened, narrowed vessels against a permanently high systemic pressure. The main pumping chamber, the left ventricle, must contract with tremendous force. Like any muscle placed under constant strain, it hypertrophies. It thickens. But this is not the healthy thickening of an athlete's heart. This is pathological. The thickened heart muscle becomes stiff, less efficient at filling with blood, and starved for oxygen because its own coronary arteries are becoming clogged. This condition, left ventricular hypertrophy, is a direct precursor to heart failure, a state where the heart simply cannot meet the body's demands for blood. Furthermore, the high pressure can strain and weaken the aorta, the body's main artery, leading to aneurysms, potentially fatal bulges that can rupture. Finally, the scene is set for the acute event. A piece of that unstable plaque can rupture. The body, thinking it's a bleeding wound, forms a frantic clot. That clot can completely block a coronary artery, causing a heart attack. Or it can travel to the brain, causing an ischemic stroke. The primary catalyst for this entire cascade, from the initial endothelial damage to the final, Catastrophic clot is the relentless, sand-blasting force of high blood pressure, for which excessive salt is a primary, modifiable driver. The cerebrovascular system, the starved and drowned brain. The brain, comprising just 2% of body weight, consumes 20% of its oxygen and glucose. It is exquisitely sensitive to its blood supply. The damage from salt manifests here in two terrifying ways: the sudden stroke and the slow fade. First, the stroke. The same atherosclerotic process that chokes coronary arteries also affects the carotid and cerebral arteries supplying the brain. A blocked artery in the brain is an ischemic stroke, killing brain tissue within minutes from oxygen deprivation. Alternatively, the constant high pressure can weaken a small artery in the brain until it bursts, a hemorrhagic stroke, flooding the brain with blood. High blood pressure is the single most important risk factor for both types. But the damage is more insidious. We now understand that chronic hypertension from high salt intake causes a relentless, microscopic assault on the brain's delicate small vessels and capillaries. It leads to microbleeds and tiny, silent blockages called lacunar infarcts. These accumulate over decades, eroding white matter, the brain's communication highways. This is not a sudden event, but a slow leak. It manifests as gradual cognitive decline, impaired executive function, slowed processing speed, and is a direct contributor to vascular dementia. Furthermore, research indicates that this impaired blood flow and clearance of toxins may also accelerate the pathological processes of Alzheimer's disease. In a very real sense, you are salting your brain, pickling the very organ of your consciousness. The renal system, the drowning filters. The kidneys are the ground zero of sodium regulation and long-term blood pressure control. They contain about 1 million filtering units each, called nephrons, each a twisted labyrinth of tiny blood vessels and tubules. They are both the victim and the unwitting accomplice in the high-salt saga. Chronically high blood pressure is a death sentence for these delicate glomerular capillaries. The high pressure inside them damages their filtering membranes. Protein, which should be kept in the blood, starts to leak into the urine, an early sign of kidney distress called microalbuminuria. As damage progresses, the kidney's ability to filter waste declines. Their ability to precisely excrete sodium and regulate fluid balance becomes impaired. This creates a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. Damaged kidneys are less able to excrete sodium, so sodium retention worsens. This drives blood pressure even higher, which further damages the kidneys. It is a textbook positive feedback loop of destruction. This is chronic kidney disease, a condition that often progresses silently for years until kidney function is irreparably lost, culminating in end-stage renal disease requiring dialysis or transplantation. The kidneys, designed to be the masters of fluid balance, drown in the flood they can no longer control. The skeletal system, the leached foundation. This connection is one of the most underestimated consequences of high salt intake. The link is calcium. The kidneys manage a tight balance between sodium and calcium. When sodium intake is high and the kidneys work to excrete the excess, a mechanism called natriuresis is activated. This process also increases the excretion of calcium in the urine, calciuresis. Where does this excreted calcium come from? It is pulled from the body's largest calcium reservoir, the bones. Over time, this constant, low-level leaching of calcium contributes to a negative calcium balance. The bone remodeling process is disrupted. Bone resorption outpaces bone formation. Bone mineral density slowly declines. This is a direct, dietary contributor to osteopenia and osteoporosis. The very framework of your body becomes porous and brittle, not primarily from a lack of calcium in your diet, but from a system that is flushing that calcium away due to an excess of salt. You are, quite literally, peeing your skeleton down the drain. The cellular and genetic level, the silent orchestrator of dysfunction. The damage extends beyond organs to the very fabric of our cells and genes. Excessive sodium has been shown to promote systemic inflammation. High salt environments can activate immune cells like macrophages and T cells, pushing them towards a pro-inflammatory state. This chronic, low-grade inflammation is now recognized as a key driver of all the diseases we've discussed: atherosclerosis, heart failure, kidney disease, and even cognitive decline. Impair endothelial function. Beyond physical damage, salt can directly reduce the production of nitric oxide, a molecule crucial for keeping arteries relaxed and dilated. Alter the gut microbiome. Emerging, groundbreaking research suggests that a high-salt diet can decimate populations of beneficial gut bacteria, particularly strains like lactobacillus. This dysbiosis is linked to increased inflammation and autoimmune activity, and may be a novel pathway through which salt exacerbates hypertension and immune disorders. The hidden pandemic: why we can't taste our way out. A critical reason this crisis persists is the source of the salt. Only about 11% of our sodium intake comes from the salt we consciously add at the table or in cooking. Another 12% is naturally occurring in whole foods. The staggering majority, over 77%, comes from processed and restaurant foods. This is the hidden pandemic. Sodium chloride is the miracle tool of the food industry. It is a preservative, extending shelf life immeasurably. It is a flavor enhancer, masking the blandness of low-quality ingredients. It is a binder and texture modifier, giving processed meats their spring and bread its structure. It is a cheap and powerful addictive trigger, keeping you coming back for more. It is in the healthy whole-grain bread, the low-fat salad dressing, the canned tomatoes, the vegetable broth, the breakfast cereal, the rotisserie chicken, the pasta sauce, the yogurt, and the protein bar. It is omnipresent. This is why merely putting away the salt shaker is a futile gesture. The excess is baked, canned, and pre-packaged into the very fabric of the modern food supply. We have lost our physiological taste for salt because we are perpetually bathed in it. Our taste buds have been brutally desensitized. The path to reclamation: a journey back to sensitivity. All of this can feel overwhelming, a dystopian narrative of inevitable decline. But here is the powerful, liberating truth: this damage is largely reversible, especially in its early stages. Reducing sodium intake is one of the most effective, rapid, and affordable medical interventions in existence. Within weeks of significantly lowering sodium, blood pressure begins to fall. The strain on the heart eases. The inflammatory state calms. The kidneys get respite. The vicious cycles begin to reverse. How do we begin? The 1-week audit: do not change a single thing you eat. For 1 week, become an archaeologist of your own diet. Read every nutrition label. Look at the sodium mg line. Track it. The total will shock you. This awareness is the non-negotiable first step. The kitchen revolution: cook. When you cook with whole, unprocessed ingredients, a piece of raw chicken, a bunch of spinach, a cup of dried beans, a fresh tomato, you control the sodium. You reclaim your palate. You rediscover the symphony of flavors from herbs, spices, citrus, garlic, onions, vinegar, and peppers. The strategic shopper: when you must buy packaged goods, compare. Different brands of the same item can have wildly different sodium levels. Choose no salt added or low sodium versions of canned vegetables and beans. Rinse them under water to remove up to 40% of the added sodium. The restaurant gambit: when eating out, assume the sodium content is extreme. Ask for sauces and dressings on the side. Choose grilled over fried or sauced. Skip the bread basket and the complimentary chips. The potassium partnership: actively increase your intake of potassium-rich foods, sweet potatoes, spinach, bananas, oranges, tomatoes, beans, lentils, avocados, and yogurt. Potassium helps counterbalance sodium's effects on blood pressure and promotes excretion. This is not about a life of bland austerity. It is the opposite. It is a journey from the monochrome, brutal hammer of salt to the vibrant, nuanced orchestra of real flavor. It is a journey from being a passive consumer of disease to an active architect of health. This glass of water represents clarity. It represents the fundamental, life-sustaining fluid of your body, meant to be just that, a fluid, not a brine. The choice we face is stark. Will we allow our internal oceans to remain polluted, corroding the very shores of our vitality? Or will we choose to clear the waters, to restore the balance that is our biological birthright? The evidence is incontrovertible. The path is clear. The time for action is now. Do not let another meal be an unwitting act of sabotage. Let it be an act of nourishment, of protection, of life. This is your body. This is your one, precious, incredible vessel through this world. Stop flooding it with salt. Start honoring it with balance. The power to change the tide lies in your hands, at your grocery store, and on your plate. Seize it.